Matthew chapter 14. At that time Herod the Tetrarch heard of the fame of Jesus, and said unto his servants, This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead, and therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. For Herod had laid hold on John, and bound him, and put him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. For John said unto him, It is not lawful for thee to have her. And when he would have put him to death, he feared the multitude, because they counted him as a prophet. But when Herod's birthday was kept, the daughter of Herodias danced before them, and pleased Herod. Whereupon he promised with an oath to give her whatsoever she would ask. And she, being before instructed of her mother, said, Give me here John Baptist's head in a charger. And the king was sorry. Nevertheless, for the oath's sake, and them which sat with him at meat, he commanded it to be given her. And he sent and beheaded John in the prison. And his head was brought in a charger, and given to the damsel, and she brought it to her mother. And his disciples came, and took up the body, and buried it, and went and told Jesus. When Jesus heard of it, he departed thence by ship into a desert place apart. And when the people had heard thereof, they followed him on foot out of the cities. And Jesus went forth, and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them, and he healed their sick. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, This is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages, and buy themselves victuals. But Jesus said unto them, They need not depart, give ye them to eat. And they say unto him, We have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. He said, Bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass. And he took the 5 loaves, and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven he blessed, and brake, and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat, and were filled, and they took up of the fragments that remained 12 baskets full. And they that had eaten were about 5,000 men, beside women and children. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray, and when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the 4th watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking on the sea. And when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit, and they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. And when Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and caught him, and said unto him, O thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And when they were come into the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth thou art the Son of God. And when they were gone over, they came into the land of Gennesaret. And when the men of that place had knowledge of him, they sent out into all that country round about, and brought unto him all that were diseased, and besought him that they might only touch the hem of his garment, and as many as touched were made perfectly whole. So Matthew chapter 14 begins with one of the Herods from the Bible, and there's 6 of them. We already talked about one of them with the birth of Jesus, and this is another one, and the story of John's imprisonment and his eventual murder. And that's one that you see a lot of stories take their inspiration from this. Just the dancer who's so enchanting that the king says that he'll do anything. It's a good story against taking oaths. You should never take oaths. That's a big lesson from the Bible. And here's a story where somebody takes an oath and ends up killing somebody because of it. And so other things that happen, I mean, I feel like at this point in Matthew, a lot of it is just very action-driven storytelling at this point. And so a lot of it is just things being told, like the telling about John's imprisonment and his eventual beheading. Other things in this chapter that are told is when Jesus replicates a bunch of bread and fish to feed the multitudes. And this one's interesting because in the next chapter it happens again. And to me, the most interesting part is in the next chapter when it happens again, and there's all the multitudes, and the disciples are like, how are we going to feed all these people? And it's like, did you just get amnesia? Do you remember last time when Jesus fed the multitudes? So that is just something, it's like Jesus feeds the multitudes more than once, but even the second time that it's happening, people are still like, oh, but how are we going to feed all these people? It's like, you still don't get it, that Jesus can feed anybody out of thin air. Doesn't even need something to replicate. But the whole replication thing is a really interesting topic, like how it was working, the actual physics, and I guess it's worth just throwing out some personal opinions. I think that he really was replicating stuff, and there probably was, when they study quantum entanglement and that kind of stuff, that kind of high physics, I think that there's nothing physically against object replication. I think that God knows how to do all that stuff. And so I think that Jesus really was replicating objects. Also in this chapter, Jesus walks on water, and it's just one of those instances that I feel connected to so it's the fourth watch of the night, and the waves are going crazy, and they see a spirit, what they think is a spirit out on the water, and then Jesus talks to them. And it's interesting how Peter goes down and starts to walk on the water out to Jesus, and then eventually begins to sink. And yeah, that's just something interesting from the Bible that happens. A lot of interesting things about it. One, that he would walk out on the water to go to Jesus. And then the other one, that midway, he begins doubting everything. And because I think from an outside perspective, it's really easy to be like, well, why would these people be doubting? How could you get off the ship and then you're already walking on the water, and then all of a sudden you start doubting? But it's something that I actually connect with. A lot of times you do have the inspiration at the very beginning to get going, and it's not until you're halfway there and you're looking around, wait, what's even going on? Wait, I'm out here walking on the crazy waves, and sometimes it's then when you start to get doubt. And yeah, I don't know that I have a lot to say about it, but it's something that I think from an outside perspective, it's really easy to go, well, what the heck? By the time you're off the ship and you're walking on water, why would you all of a sudden start doubting then? But I think it's something that it does happen all the time. Maybe not all the time, but where you do have that initial courage to jump in, the initial faith. But when you're midway in there and all this chaos is going around you, you kind of, I don't know, snap back to reality a little bit, and you lose some of your faith that you had when you were ready to just jump right in. I don't know what there is to take away from it, but let me know in the comments. That's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed. God bless everyone.